My name's Emma Payne. I am the founder of Help Texts, a company that I started working on in 2015 and officially launched in 2018. And back in 2018, I knew what I didn't know. I had 20 years experience building web and mobile solutions for lots of other things: youth voter registration, care coordination, families caring for children with disabilities. Um, so I knew about the tech, but I knew very little about the field of thanatology, about death, dying, and bereavement, except for my own personal experiences of grief. So as I was deciding whether or not to build this company, I reached out to a bunch of people, most of whom did not respond. But one person I heard back from was Melissa, who is now my chief clinical officer at HelpText, thank goodness. But like Melissa, last week you wrote an article about the experience of first hearing from me on LinkedIn and how skeptical you were, and how really it took a lot of mental gymnastics on your part to be open-minded about the idea of text-based grief support. And I really hadn't understood how skeptical you were, so it was kind of fun to read about it, and would love to hear your thoughts now about what it was like when you heard from me originally, why you were skeptical, but also what we've done together since then to really address that skepticism.
Yeah, I had been delivering direct service, so really supporting children, teens, families, and adult populations after grief and loss for 15 years at that point. And, part of our work is to make sure that we're always abreast of the new tools and resources that are available in our space. And so when you reached out saying that you wanted to provide text-based support for grief, I at first kind of scoffed at the idea like, "Oh my gosh, what is this going to, like, consist of?" But I wanted to remain curious, and so, essentially you told me a little bit about, what it would look like to pilot a program with our families, and I pretty much kind of just remember hanging up the phone going like, "Sure, we'll consider it," but really in the back of my mind, I was like, "We're not considering it." And I went on with my day essentially. But the reality is that most providers every day will come in contact with families that they're not able to serve for a variety of different reasons. And that was true for that day. I had many back-to-back families that couldn't access our service. Perhaps there's a language barrier, there was transportation issues. To me, I just kind of had you in the back of my mind going like, is this a way to provide support to these families who I know are not going to be able to access my support, and most likely aren't going to be accessing the support that I'm going to give them resources to that are not my services? And so I had to have sort of a real heart to heart with myself and be like, what are my issues here? What's coming up for me? What are my fears? What are my concerns? And really kind of discover that a lot of my fears had to do with sort of me worrying that families would use this service and no longer need mine, or that worried that, perhaps the content, might not be aligned with even our philosophy on grief and loss. And so, being able to circle back and have a conversation with you about those concerns and really work through some of those concerns with you was really helpful. And it got us to a place where we could then, pilot. And I remember one of the first teens that we piloted with was a teen girl, and her mom died of ALS. And she basically was like, these texts are like the only thing that get me through my school day. I'm so naturally anxious, and I can sit and after my third period right before lunch, read my text message and reflect. And it's really meaningful for me. And I just remember going like, okay, that is pretty impressive to hear that texts are meeting her needs, because I'm not available for her at third period. Neither is her school counselor and social worker, who has very limited training in grief and loss, right? And groups
Yeah.
are not necessarily available for her. And so what does she lean on? She actually has very limited resources during that time frame.
I remember that teenager now too that you're reminding me, where she said that, yeah, she was like, I wait until after third period. That's when I read about my mom. I've never deleted any of the texts. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to me, I was like, okay, this is already proven to be more profound and significant than I had originally given it credit. And And I think from there, we just started seeing the positive feedback and impact that texts were
Yeah.
having. And it really started to kind of change my mind pretty quickly. It didn't take long, right? Because in my mind, if we could even help one person in a positive way, that's one more person that needed to feel felt and supported in their grief. And if it didn't come from me, it was an extension of me that they were receiving. And so I felt really good about that.
I'm so lucky that you put your skepticism aside, honestly, because I don't know how help text would have unfolded without you. I mean, it's thanks to you that every message in the system is clinically sound, that every message is building on current theoretical models of bereavement, that we have this now body of research, published research, that hopefully helps other people to put their skepticism aside as well in the same way, right? Because, like you said, the evidence itself, the data itself answers the question. We know that it works. We know that text can work.
We also know that one-on-one and group support doesn't work for everyone, right? There are people that will never be group appropriate, but that doesn't mean that they don't need care and support. As a professional who delivers direct service, we have to be constantly curious and open when it comes to new modalities entering the space and new interventions and new resources, tools, all of the above, right? We have to be curious. We have to try it ourselves. We have to be willing to say, it may not be like my first option because I really believe in one-on-one or group therapy, but it can be an option that I'm going to extend to everyone because when I am not available, I want to know that these people that I'm caring for are continuously getting care. And really, that's what it boiled down to for me.
Yeah. Well, there are subscribers in 57 countries, and all 50 states who would not be getting support if it wasn't for you being willing to put your skepticism aside. So thank you from all of us, and thanks for writing about it as well. It was fun to read the story.
Yeah. And I would just encourage any bereavement professional to reach out to us and trial it yourself. We're happy to give you a month's worth of text messages to really kind of get at the essence and feel for what this feels like for a grieving family to receive. And I think that when you trial it, you're going to see that it is gentle grief education that's normalizing, that's validating, and that the coping strategies are the things that you naturally tell families to consider doing anyway. All we're doing is providing it via text message, and then families have the ability to access it later when they need it, versus trying to do a memory recall about what you discussed in group or in one-on-one. And so the synergy, it's very complementary of a service to the work that you already do, I would say.